from being used by those with a financial interest or conflict of interest in front of the federal government for being used for their own means. And in particular, I think many Americans are extremely concerned that the new DOGE effort is being led by somebody with billions of dollars of financial interests in front of the federal government. We know, because of reporting that came out yesterday in the New York Times, that already this DOGE effort, which is being led, of course, co-led by Mr. Musk, who is the richest man in the world, as has been stated here today, is literally already running this effort out of his private company headquarters here in Washington, D.C. at SpaceX, which has billions of dollars in front of the federal government in federal contracts. This is a clear financial conflict of interest that is governed and regulated on the executive branch. And so this amendment would ensure that this committee, as a federal resource, would not be used to advance the financial interests of Mr. Musk or anyone else who might appear either before the DOGE subcommittee or any other of our subcommittees or committees. So I'm just going to read you the amendment. It's very clear. It's very straightforward. No person with a personal financial interest impacted by the decisions of the committee or any subcommittee thereof, including the newly created Subcommittee on Delivering on Government Efficiency, shall advise the committee or its members in a paid or unpaid capacity or otherwise interact with the committee or subcommittee on any matter that would benefit that person financially or constitute a conflict of interest. And that, Mr. Chairman, is the amendment, and I will stand for questions.
Would my friend yield?
Yes.
If I could make a question to my friend. You talk about potential conflict with Elon Musk. Is it true that his company, SpaceX, holds about $20 billion of contracts with NASA?
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, I am not personally aware of what the total dollar amount is, but it is my understanding that indeed it is tens of billions of dollars, not only through SpaceX, but we also know that significant other financial interests, whether it's regulation of our communications networks, as well as other transportation.
Might I further pursue that?
Yes.
He has a competitor in Boeing, the Starliner, and he has actually said the world doesn't need another capsule, suggesting that he'd like to maybe eliminate competition. Is it possible that could be a conflict of interest, given his position?
Absolutely.
On the regulatory front, the National Highway Safety, Traffic Safety Administration has opened 5 investigations into Tesla. Having Elon Musk as the head of this DOGE enterprise could lead to perhaps the suppression of those kinds of investigations. I'm speculating. There's no evidence he's done that. But isn't that a risk conflictually?
Absolutely.
So I support the gentlelady's amendment. I believe there's ample evidence of conflicts all over the place, especially with respect to Elon Musk. And I think we need to protect ourselves from it. I yield back to my friend from New Mexico.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield my time.
Gentlelady yields back. I'll recognize myself for a few minutes. I'm glad the Democrats are, or at least the gentlelady from New Mexico, we'll see how this vote turns out, but she's continuing the Biden regime of censoring speech by limiting who can interact with the committee. I stand ready to work with anyone who wants to make government better. I don't care if they're a Republican, Democrat, rich, poor, urban, rural. We've got, as my friend and colleague Mr. Gosar mentioned, we have a crisis of debt in our country. And I don't know of another committee in the House of Representatives that is as serious and focused on reducing wasteful spending as this committee. That's what this committee was created to do. I hope that we can do that, and I hope that we can do that in a bipartisan manner. But I oppose the lady's amendment. It's unnecessary. It undermines Americans' constitutional rights to petition the government. So I urge my colleagues to vote against the Stansbury amendment. Any other members seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, do you yield?
Chair recognizes Mr. Gosar.
Yeah,
Actually, I'm supposed to recognize the Democrats next. I'm sorry. Who wants to be recognized on this?
Do you want more time?
We rotate for the freshmen. We go back and forth. I was the last speaker, so now we'll say
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mfume.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am in support of the amendment, and I would yield the balance of my time to the maker of the amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I want to clarify. This is perfectly in accordance with the existing requirements within the executive branch of government. It is required under the executive branch that you provide financial disclosures, that if you have a clear financial conflict of interest with business in front of the federal government, and you have business in front of an agency that you are advising on, one, it's required that it be done in the public domain. It's obvious that you have to recuse yourself from any financial interests or government advising that have to do with that. And so this would put those same requirements on the legislative process. There are many, many Americans who can advise the federal government, thousands of Americans who work in the federal government and in the private sector on government efficiency. There is absolutely no reason why a billionaire who bought his way into Donald Trump's inner circle with $250 million in campaign donations should be the person that is allowed to run a different branch of government's efforts alongside our colleagues across the aisle who literally has tens of billions of dollars in front of the federal government and could benefit from the efforts that come before this committee. I yield back.
Now, Mr. Gosar.
I find this very interesting. We've got a conflict of interest everywhere. You look at the wealth of some individuals, and I'm not picking out one side or another. Whether it be people working for us, people on this committee, all the way across the board have a financial interest. So are we even capable of doing this? Now, let me also tell you a little bit about Mr. Musk. What would have happened to those folks in North Carolina and Georgia and Florida that were taken back by the hurricanes? He volunteered to Starlink. So we also have to have an ability to have innovators, because the last thing I've seen in this body of work is that we're poor innovators. We don't think outside the box. We go over and over the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. That's insanity, folks. I hope that he picks on, and I'm not on the committee, but I hope that he picks on his own platforms that we saw. They admitted to being censored by this previous administration, the Biden administration, forced to do that. So let's not talk about, high and mighty about being one side or another. How about what we do is allow this man to do this and then take a look. Now, I know that the ranking member brought up Boeing. Well, I think we look at Mr. Musk because he's actually taken something that's actually gone further than anything Boeing's done. Boeing's been part of that problem. So we need to think outside the box here. I agree the gentlelady's got a point here, but this amendment is poorly written, and I would vote no against it, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. They've called votes. We're going to go another 5 or 6 minutes as long as we can, and then we'll recess to go vote. So any other members seek recognition? Chair recognizes Mr. Min.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I started my career, I prosecuted securities fraud at the SEC. I later went on to become a law professor at UC Irvine, where I specialized in corporate governance issues. And I would just note that this type of rule, essentially a rule of recusal, is not seen by anyone as unconstitutional, so I gently dispute that claim. This is a very prevalent rule that we see across a wide variety of areas, and the principle is very simple. When someone in the government has a financial conflict of interest, they should remove themselves from being a decision maker. It's not rocket science. It reflects basic ethics. And I would just say that I'm a little bit disappointed by this debate because I asked specifically to be on this committee because it is the committee responsible for oversight, for ensuring accountability, transparency, ethics in our government. And that's important at a time when Americans around this country overwhelmingly believe that our government, and particularly this body, Congress, is fundamentally corrupt and self-dealing. Now, there's a saying that the ancient Romans used to say, quis custodiet ipso custodes. Who watches the watchman? And as the committee responsible for overseeing ethics, for overseeing accountability, that question is very, very important. Who watches the watchman? This is a rule of common sense that ensures that the watchmen are not engaged in self-dealing, that we're not engaged in pay-to-play, restoring trust in this institution. So I thank the author for bringing this forward, and I'm going to vote aye on this.
Does the gentleman yield? Thank you. And thank you so much, Representative Min. We're so grateful to have you and your expertise here on the committee. You know, I do find it just a little surprising, shocking, although certainly nothing should be shocking to us anymore on the Oversight Committee for those who are watchers of this committee. But if you read the amendment, it's very clear. It's just intended to keep anyone, any person, just read it. It's in front of you. The text is in front of you, who has a financial interest in front of the committee from financially benefiting from their work and interaction with the committee. And the fact that our colleagues are like fighting back against that, this is just basic ethical behavior. That is what the rules of the committee are for, is to make sure that we govern ourselves in a way that is ethical and in alignment with the public trust that the American people have put on us. That's what this amendment is about. It's good government, it's about ethics, and it's about making sure that things are being done above board.
Will the gentlelady yield?
Mel.
I will yield
Mel.
back to the, I will yield to the gentlelady.
Well, I think you yielded back. I thought you yielded back.
He yielded.
All right. Ms. Crockett, I'll recognize you, but we have called vote, so Chair recognizes Ms. Crockett.
I will be very quick. You know what? The fact I associate myself with the remarks that have already been made, especially by the gentleman from California. This is what's wrong with government. And the idea that we are debating whether or not, just to be clear, and I know that Mr. Gosar, you know, pointed out the fact that he felt as if Mr. Musk has something to contribute. This amendment does not disallow someone from being able to contribute, but it would say that it may be a problem if you are receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government while at the same time arguing that we need to cut trillions of dollars from our debt. It may say, you know what, you need to divest, something that Democrats have actually been pushing for a while, as we did believe that the now incoming president violated the emoluments clause and that there were conflicts there. Honestly, this is literally about the American people looking at us and knowing that you have no other interest except for to do what's right by this country. And I don't understand what could be more patriotic than deciding that you truly want to make sure that people don't have to trust what you say, but they can believe what you do because they know that you have no other interest. That is all that it is. It is the basic ethics that we are missing from the Supreme Court that has the lowest ratings than it's ever had, because the American people feel as if they are constantly conflicted. Again, as someone who is licensed to practice law in multiple states, one of the things that we have to do is pass a separate ethics test, because this should be about ethics. Why is it that only one side of the aisle seems to care about truth, honor, and honestly what I would consider to be the most patriotic thing that we could do, which is being—
The yielded time has been
Chairman.
expired. There was 2 minutes left when Ms. Stansbury
Mr.
yielded.
Chairman.
The time has expired. Let me say, I'm going to recognize Mr. Palmer will be the last speaker, and then we're going to recess until 5 minutes after the last vote. After the last vote, we'll all come back in there, and I'm, again, talking to the freshmen. So I'll recognize, Ms. Mace, did you recognize for a motion or parliamentary inquiry? Or?
No, I wanted to say a word.
Okay. We'll get you when we come back. Last speaker before we recess, Mr. Palmer from Alabama. And then remember, come back 5 minutes after the last vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very troubled by the amendment. I think I understand the intent of the gentlelady in bringing it, but this violates, in my opinion, it violates the Constitution's right to redress grievances for the government, because it doesn't say, it says no person could be interpreted as any person. And because somebody might have a government contract, might be working for a company that's involved with government work, that does not deny them the right to participate in their government. We're a participatory republic. And I'm really, I know what this is about. This is an effort to undermine what the incoming administration is trying to do to get our debt under control, get our spending under control, and it's a direct shot at Mr. Musk, whom they feel like played a disproportionate role in the success of President-elect Trump. But we shouldn't be doing things like this. We should respect the constitutional right of every U.S. citizen to participate in the governance of the country, either through elections or through the opportunity to advise on issues of critical importance to our country. So in that regard, Mr. Chairman, I would encourage the gentlelady to withdraw the amendment, but I know that's probably not likely, so I am going to oppose
Does
the
the
amendment.
gentleman yield just briefly for a moment?
Gentleman's time has expired, or gentleman yields back, rather. Pursuant to the previous order, the chair declares the committee in recess until 5 minutes after the last vote. The committee stands in recess. The committee will come back to order. The committee will come back to order. I understand there are a few people en route, but we're going to go back, start back with discussion. And it is now the minority side, and I believe I was informed that Ms. Crockett sought recognition for 5 minutes. Chair recognizes Ms. Crockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I'd yield the remainder of my time to the gentlelady from New Mexico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, Madam Crockett. This is a common sense good government amendment. The entire purpose of this amendment is to bring standard ethics language into the committee process to make sure that anybody who is interacting with this committee does not use it or its resources for personal profit. It's basic ethics language. It does not infringe on speech. It does not prevent someone from appearing or advising the committee on general issues or classes of issues which are permissible under the rules and the ethics of the House of Representatives. But it would prevent someone from using the committee and federal resources for personal financial gain. And I want to read the text in the amendment that is really clear about this. It says that folks shall not advise the committee or its members in a paid or unpaid capacity or otherwise interact with the committee or subcommittee on any matter that would benefit the person financially or constitute a conflict of interest. This is not a violation of the Constitution or of free speech. Using federal resources to benefit your own financial interests is not protected speech. Unless, I was trying to figure out while we were on break what my colleagues are referring to. Maybe they're referring to the Citizens United case. Maybe they're referring to protecting the speech of campaign donations. Maybe they're referring to protecting the $250 million in donations that Elon Musk made to Donald Trump in his campaign, and that has given him access not only to the inner circle of Donald Trump's administration, but it's going to land him in office in the White House and pretty much unfettered access to this committee and its resources. So this amendment is designed to make sure he can come here, he can come testify, he can talk about issues that are general issues, but he cannot use this committee as a personal piggy bank to put forward an agenda that would personally profit him or others against the public interest. That is what this amendment is about. That is what we're trying to do, is to make sure that people do not use this committee for personal and private gains. Now, I'm dismayed that in the first organizing committee of this Congress, we can't even agree on the most basic ethical standards for how this committee is going to conduct itself. Language that appears in almost every single government agency, federal, state, local, tribal, also in the private sector. This is about protecting the public interest. This is about making sure that the goals that are supposedly laid out in this rule change that creates these 2 new subcommittees is really about achieving government efficiency and improvements. And it's about making sure that billionaires who buy their way into the inner circle of Donald Trump do not use this committee and its resources for their own financial gain. And with that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Green from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of outrage today about my new subcommittee on DOGE. I want to say I'm honored. Thank you. You see, all the talk about billionaires. Let's talk about George Soros, who has donated hundreds of billions of dollars to Democrats, Democrat PACs, Democrat interests that ripped open our border, invaded our country, have had all types of policies that have directly impacted Americans in the worst ways possible. You know, Elon Musk used to be a Democrat. And I think the problem here is you guys are really jealous. And let's be brutally honest. It's your policies that have run off Democrats. You have run off your own donors. And you ran off the voters in this last election because of the absolute failures that you did to this country. So let's be really clear in what you're trying to do. You're attacking Elon Musk because you're really jealous. You are. You're just really jealous. And Elon Musk, I want to remind you guys, while California is on fire, he is directing his resources there with Tesla trucks and Starlinks to help people and victims that are being impacted right now by the failures of the Democrat leaders in California. No, it's not climate change that is burning down California. It is a failure of how to handle and prevent these types of problems. No water in the fire hydrants, no water in the water reservoirs, not cleaning up the forest floors. So let's be very clear about Democrat policies, Democrat decisions that have run off so many people. And let's talk about what you're trying to do is just attack someone that used to actually support your party and supports your party no more. But let's really talk about this amendment. And it's not an attack on Elon Musk specifically, as it is an attack on Elon Musk and every single taxpayer in this country. It says, no person with a personal financial interest impacted by the decisions of the committee or any subcommittee thereof, including the newly created subcommittee on delivering on government efficiency, shall advise the committee or its members in a paid or unpaid capacity. Think about that. So you don't want taxpayers to have any say in what this subcommittee holds hearings on, talks about things that need to be funded or unfunded, departments that need to be shut down, union employees of the federal government that need to be fired, unions that need to be busted up, waste, fraud, and abuse. If this amendment were to pass, this amendment would directly violate the freedom of speech of taxpayers, of Americans, because this amendment says that no one can have any say to committee members or on the subcommittee of government efficiency. That's what this amendment says. And our job and our role is to serve the taxpayers, to serve the American people, to protect their freedom of speech, to uphold their interest, to protect how their taxpayer dollars are used. And so this is why this committee we can't consider having an amendment like this in our rules, because we'd be violating exactly what we are here to do. It's a complete waste of time. And Mr. Chairman, I oppose this amendment and I yield back. Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. I just got to first. That was a lot. And first, I think the people of California and the West absolutely deserve an apology for politicizing fires that are actually killing people right now, and where people are losing their homes. And the idea that somehow you want to politicize those and say that those were caused by crazy conspiracy theories. I don't think anyone should take any advice on how fires are created. Certainly by someone that has said space lasers actually create forest fires. And so that deserves an apology to the people of California. And this idea that somehow Elon Musk is going to save us, the richest person on the planet, multiple times over, and that we're arguing about what he can do for this country when we're not actually bringing in people that are actually impacted by the policies of our friends on the other side of the aisle, I think is quite shameful. And the gentle lady from Georgia should apologize.
Any other members seek recognition? Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this conflict of interest that we have before us today, I'm hearing about conflict of interest, quote, most basic ethics standards, quote, basic ethics, resources for personal profit, making sure we're, financial interests are at stake, et cetera. Mr. Chairman, I find it rich that the same members of Congress who defended the Biden crime family, who are making millions of dollars from international business deals while trading on public office, are now here lecturing us today about conflicts of interest. Like they should just sit right back down. They have no room on this issue. I would love to know if they think Nancy Pelosi trading stocks is a conflict of interest. So, if the Biden family, international business dealings, you're trading off the vice presidency and presidency is not a conflict of interest. I would love to know where they stand on that, Mr. Chairman, because this is ridiculous. We need to work for the American people. We need to get to work fast. There was a mandate in November, on November 5th, to push our country forward, to get out of the worst economy in my lifetime that the left forced upon the American people. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford gas. They can definitely not afford child care. And the education system in this country is down the tubes. Taxes are hurting American families on top of it. We have at least 14 million illegals in this country. It's probably far higher than that. We can't keep count. We don't even know where the 300,000 kids are. And so what they have done to destroy the fabric of the United States of America, everything we were founded on, freedom and liberty, the ability to prosper, to work, live, and retire in the greatest nation in the world, they have destroyed that. And it is our job to get back to the basics. And quite frankly, I don't think government efficiency is enough. I think we're going to have to go much further than that. And in fact, look at dismantling entire departments or even agencies, because it's just the bureaucracy we have created with the deep state of bureaucracy here is hurting our country. It's hurting our national security. We're weaker on the world stage. Our economy is going to be a national security issue in very close order. I was hoping that American families would be able to refi with lower interest rates this quarter on their homes and be able to afford housing. It doesn't look like that's going to happen because of what the Biden-Harris administration has done in the run-up to President Trump swearing in on January 20th. This is un-American. It's disgusting. It's gross. Let's move forward. Let's get these votes done this afternoon. Let's get to work for the American people, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Chair recognizes Mr. Higgins from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleagues can expect conflict in this committee. There's going to be a lot of conflict. And Elon, Mr. Musk, is absolutely bringing conflict to the United States focus. We are in conflict with the big government machine that has been devouring the wealth and smashing the individual rights, liberties, and freedoms of the American people whom we serve. You think that's funny, young man? Talk to your great-grandchildren, your yet unborn generations that is inheriting the debt that the machine of D.C. has forced upon our country. We are $36 trillion in debt. That's $36,000 billion. Were we to balance the budget and run a $1 billion surplus, it would require 36,000 years to address that debt. And that's not funny. And we're not playing. So you can expect conflict in this committee. And with men like Elon Musk coming in working with our president, who my people elected, you can absolutely look forward to many discussions that will cause wailing and gnashing of teeth across this town that has crippled the future of our country with debt. You should look forward to that conflict, because we'll be saving a generation yet unborn of our country. And that's exactly what we intend to do. I yield the balance of my time to the chair.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. Any other members seek recognition? Seeing none, the question is now on the Stansbury Amendment offered by the gentlewoman from New Mexico. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. No.
Mr.
In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for a recorded
A
vote.
recorded vote is ordered as previously announced. Further proceedings on the question will be postponed.